Good evening, folks. Welcome to Here's the Deal with Luke and Shilo. So tonight is going to be our term limits debate, and we've got a few guests. Luke is going to be teaming with Daryl Lease, and they are going to be on the sides against term limits, and we're going to have Mike Blessum and Representative Jeff Magrum speaking on the behalf of term limits. So I'm going to bring these guys on here. And Jeff is not, we're still waiting on Jeff, guys. How are we doing this evening?
Good, Shilo.
Doing good? Okay, so I guess what we'll do is I'm going to give you guys, to start out right now, I'm going to give you guys each about 90 seconds to introduce yourselves. And then hopefully here comes Jeff.
Hi.
There he is.
Pardon me, I'm finishing eating. Sitting with the fam. Came out to Jamestown. There's number one grandson.
Hello. So what we're gonna do, Jeff, is I'm gonna give you guys each 90 seconds right now to tell us who you are and state your case a little bit before we get into the debate. We're just going to have 90 seconds though. So let's start with you, Jeff.
How about start with someone else? Let me get situated here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's go, Mike.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Shilo?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Mike Blessum, District 5 Vice Chair up in Minot, part of the rabble-rousing crew up in that area that's causing all kinds of havoc, I guess, around the state for rhinos in particular. I'm a small business owner, family guy. Both kids just moved out of our house in the last couple months here, so we're newly empty nesters, so a different phase of life at this point. Looking forward to the debate tonight.
Cool. Good for you. Thank you. Daryl?
Well, nobody probably knows me, so I'm from Doug and current president of North Dakota Farm Bureau, 29,000 member families strong, and also the new host of Your Talk on K-Fire 550 talk show at 9 to 11 in the morning. And I'm also hosting the K-Fire Cafe 3 to 5. So I get 4 hours a day on the radio.
That's awesome.
Love it.
So, and then everybody's favorite barber rancher guy.
I'm Luke Simons. I'm from Dickinson. If you want an awesome haircut, come on into the barber shop. We'll hook you up.
Do you do shines? Because Shilo might need a shine.
Yeah. Buff it up. Yeah.
All right, we'll bring Jeff back on. All right, Jeff, you're up, buddy. 90 seconds.
Okay, I'm in the State House Representative representing District 28, candidate for District 8 Senate. I had the bill last session for term limits, which would have given all legislators 16 years combined. It didn't matter if they were House or Senate. It failed. We had 12 votes in the House. And here we are now. A lot of people reached out after that and asked if we could make a measure of it. And I said, yeah, I'm fine with that. And I would help. And so here we are.
Here we are.
And after a long battle, we got it on the ballot.
Yep. Okay. So let's do this. Jeff and Mike, I'll give you guys, let's do, should we do, what sounds fair? 5 minutes each on each side and we'll go back and forth. Does that sound fair to everybody?
It's your Vader.
All right. So we'll start with Jeff and Mike, and you guys can state your case for term limits.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, I'll start off. So one of the things that I guess I'll start off with is that I had to be convinced to join this team. So I was one of the members that was part of the committee pushing this forward. And one of the main reasons that I had to be convinced was not really anything to do with term limits. I've always been for term limits, but I actually have a bit of a problem with the initiated measure process, mainly because I really believe in our representative republic concept. I really believe that we need to be electing the right people to office and then holding them accountable to their jobs and making sure that that works. Now, I've been persuaded, obviously. I joined the team. I felt strongly enough about term limits to make this work. One of the things that's really happened for me over the last year as we've been working on this and really pushing it through is my views on it overall have changed. There was a time when I believed that term limits were the be-all, end-all. It would fix everything under the sun. I'm nowhere near that today. It's not going to fix a lot, to be honest. I believe it's going to pass. I think you guys see the same polling that we all do. I think people on the street want this, even if their elected officials don't. I do believe that it's going to pass. But what I've found really is that, or what I believe is that term limits is going to solve one very important problem. And that's the politicians that thinks that they're bigger than government and bigger than the people. And that's the thing that I really believe can come good out of term limits. And that's why I'm for it. I believe that there's a very small sliver of politician, even in the state of North Dakota, where we have a very citizen-based government because it's essentially part-time. I do believe that there is a sliver of our government today who is there for power. You see it with the power of the purse strings all the time. You see it in our appropriations processes. You see it in our in the Capitol. You see it in the Secretary of State's office. You see it in the Attorney General's office. And so I think that there are some things that can happen with term limits that can make that better. It's not a be-all, end-all. It's not going to solve everything under the sun.
Okay, Jeff, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I like Mike. Well, maybe not like Mike, but I was for term limits, but not to the degree I am now after serving in the state legislature for 6 years. I see a definite need for it. I see a hoarding of information where the people that have chairmanships and majority leaders, they aren't willing to share information with the new guys because they are threatened by the new people. As far they don't know if they'll lose a chairmanship, or everyone in the state legislature is very competitive, and they don't want to lose their position, so they tend to guard all the information as much as possible and just hope you follow the leader when it comes time for voting, whether it's your chairman or your majority leader on the House floor. And they get very mad when you don't just follow the leader. They don't really want you to make educated decisions. So our state legislature right now is run by a small cabal of individuals that have served well over 20 years and more. And we have people in the North Dakota is a very, very corrupt legislature. You look at who just got out, the senator from Grand Forks that was in for 40 years, and with his activity, which we hear nothing about now, and what they did to the Honorable Luke Simons, the attack on him, which was very not only outrageous, it showed that these people do not respect the laws that we create. They don't respect the constitutional oath that they took. They wouldn't give a man due process, but yet since then we have a guy that's involved in a building project with the AG, and there's so much. It's disgusting what's going on there. The corruption. He's not kicked out of office. We got a guy from Minot legislature was caught running around in the middle of the night with a married intern, drunk, and got a DUI. He's coming right back into the office again. He never was asked to resign or kicked out. So we have a very corrupt government here. But then you look at the facts of Florida. Florida's 8-8, just like this proposes. One of the freest states in the nation, the fastest growing state population wise, because people want their freedom. South Dakota, 8-8, same as what this is proposing. And they meet every year, yes, but they only meet 40 days on the odd years and 35 days on the even years. So they actually meet less than we meet. So we have continuity for almost 80 days every other year.
Okay.
Plus interim meetings. So and Montana's 8-8. And actually North Dakotans passed a term limit back in 1992 for our national delegation that was struck down, not just our case, but another state. It went to the Supreme Court and was struck down by the Supreme Court. So our people have always been for term limits. But, our national delegation doesn't have to honor the state. It's still in state century code, state statute. It won by, I don't remember the number, I'd have to look, but it was in the high 60% tile or somewhere in there that in 1992, the people wanted to term limit our national delegation even. So, I mean, I think it's going to really create continuity between the House and the Senate. I think it's going to bring fresh ideas, a new energy. It's gonna create a true citizen legislature like was intended.
Okay. Daryl, would you like to start?
Well, here's the thing. I stand for freedom. I stand for liberty, and I'm not going to vote to give my freedom or no one else's away. And that's what this does. I'm just going to quote Representative Jeff Magrum. The law that we have on the books for the congressional delegation was struck down by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional. I don't need to say any more than that. I'll let other people talk first. Luke, go ahead.
Well, Mike, I don't know you, but I like everything I heard about you. And Jeff, I love you like an uncle. But you guys are going to get bloody tonight. I'm telling you right now. And this is fun because we get to have real debate here. And this is what conservatives do. We throw all the throw it all out and we look at what happens. We're not telling anybody what to think or how to vote, but this is what we do. This is what we call Big Tent, and it's fun. So getting into that, I believe in the constitutionality of term limits, and that is called an election. And the reason why we have those kind of people that you're talking about, Jeff, Mike, is because people aren't getting off the couch. I mean, let's face it here. Most of the people in North Dakota can't tell me their senator's name. They can't tell me their House of Representatives' names. They have 2 of them. They can't tell me. They're low-informed voters. So what we're saying is now we're going to have low-informed voters that come in and vote. And who's going to put these new people in position? Well, I can tell you who's going to. The Chamber of Communism, the League of Counties, all these liberal bureaucrats are going to be grooming these people to take over. I have a lot of different points here, but there's so much going on that we're not addressing with term limits. The real point is people aren't informed about their government. Just to name a few different things, let's just jump. The Trump-Hillary. Look at how much money Hillary Clinton spent trying to defeat President Trump. Just look at it. It's uncomparable. But President Trump won. How? How did he do that without spending that kind of money? Then we have Liz Cheney in Wyoming. She just got beat out by literally a no-namer. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Liz Cheney comes from a uku-rich family, establishment, and it just proved we don't need term limits. People got off the couch in Wyoming. They got off the couch. Conservatives got off the couch in Donald Trump's area. I already explained the whole grooming process. Jeff, Daryl, I know you two know how this works. The grooming process is a major part of how the Farmers Union grooms people. Daryl, the Farm Bureau, you guys groom people, and that's good. It's what you're
Looking at
supposed to
60
do.
seconds.
Oh, thank you. Just to mention a few. And then, Jeff, look at you. You, by the time you got good at being a legislator, you would have been term limited out. Rick Becker would have been term limited out. Dan Ruby would have been Mike Schatz, Larry Blue, Kim Koppelman, Ben Koppelman. All of these people, the greatest of the bunch, would all be term limited out because they don't have it. You can reclaim my time.
Okay. So, Jeff and Mike, would you guys like to answer?
So if I could just jump in on one thing on constitutionality, the constitutionality of the federal term limit laws that were brought into the different states really had much more to do with the U.S. Constitution itself and whether the states had the ability to change the requirements for federal position. So that really doesn't apply at all to state legislatures or to the governors in the states. And they right now on the books, there's 15 states that have term limits. A total of 20 at one time or another had them. Some of them have been repealing them back. Some of them are pulling back. But right now, 15 states still have them on the books. And so, to me, there isn't a constitutional question. I think that there are some good questions around getting at the voters and helping them understand better what's going on. I think we would all agree that that's exactly what needs to happen. That's a lot of the efforts that those of us in the grassroots of the Republican Party are working on. We're trying to help, the roughly 2,000 people we feel we've activated in Western North Dakota understand what's going on. So let the legislators that saw the flood of emails and phone calls and texts during the last session around the mask bill alone, they see exactly what happens when we're able to activate the grassroots. And so I don't think any of us would disagree that we need to do a better job of getting people more equipped and ready to go in and vote and vote the right way. And so I think we're all on the same page there, but just looking at it, there's no constitutional question. If you look at the founding fathers, they were very split on whether term limits should be a part of the Constitution itself. The Articles of Confederation included term limits. They were there. And so as they were coming out of that, there was a lot of debate. Jefferson was very strongly for term limits and thought that they should be there. He didn't win the day. Those that were opposed to term limits won the day. And the reason that they did is they said, we need frequent elections. We need to make sure that that those that serve are in front of their voters as often as possible. And to your guys' point, that is the place to remove them. That's where the consensus came to. But there's no constitutional question around whether term limits can and should be in state law.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Mike's exactly right. The states can't make a federal law. That's why it was struck down, not because it was it was unconstitutional that way because we can't make a national marijuana law, for example, or we can't do national things, and that was what that was attempting to do. It was to change the federal requirement, and the states that have changed back from term limits, like Wyoming, for example, they changed it statutorily, and the problem is has to be constitutionally, like we're doing. You can't change it. So my bill last session would have made a measure is what it would have done, and it would have been a constitutional question because you can't do it statutorily. That's why some of the legislators reversed it because they were going to get in a lawsuit, or like Wyoming, they did it wrong. They did get in a lawsuit, so they had to reverse it. But like South Dakota, Montana, Florida, many of them have been since 1992. And if it's so bad in them states and they hate their freedom so much, they would have reversed it by now, and they haven't reversed it. So they're keeping it. And the people I've talked to down there love it. I mean, they're, like I said, South Dakota and Florida are two of the freest states in the nation. They went through the COVID, kept the people free, and they have the same term limit as we're asking for here. As far, I don't know where else to go with that. As far as helping low information voters, I see Carrie Lynn put the question to you, Luke, and I had the same question. How are you going to get these people educated? Because I can tell you, with the election I just went through, the governor spent $600,000 against me. You know what we did? The only way we could combat it was to hit every door in the district. In order to do that, people like me I had sold my business and I could go do it. Brandon Pritchard had a break from college. Sue Ann Olson, she's semi-retired. We had the time to do it. We could do it. And we beat the money, but not everybody has that opportunity. So you're having good men that would love to serve, that have to go to work. They have to provide a living for their family. Without a term limit, we're keeping many good men out that would have loved to serve. But they can't. How are they going to commit to taking on an incumbents that wins 95% of the time? Not only they might not have the money, unless they're going to sacrifice their principles and take money from PACs, which most people don't want to do. But once they give into the PACs, then the lobbyists come after. Then all of a sudden they pay homage to the lobbyists. They have to answer to them when the lobbyists ask them to vote on something. It's like, hey, we gave you money, I mean, you got to help us back. And I think it's awful, very telling, because all the lobbyist groups are coming out against this now. It's really telling when all the lobbyists are lining up right now as we speak. The education lobbyists came out against it this week now. All the lobbyists who say this is going to empower the lobbyists are the ones fighting this measure. It's just laughable, very laughable.
Okay. Daryl, I'll let you start again.
You know what's laughable is when people stand on the moral of, I don't take money to run my campaign, and then they're involved with a measure that is totally funded from out-of-state big money to the tune of over $800,000. That to me speaks volumes of this, that we have big money coming into our state to change our Constitution. It happened with Marcy's Law. I don't like that. I didn't vote for that either. It happened with the Ethics Commission that has really got nothing. It is a ridiculous deal. That was totally 100% big money that changed our state. And here we are with term limits, 100%. Oh, excuse me, 6,000 of the $850,000 spent so far has come from in-state. So essentially, 100% out of state money passing term limits in our Constitution. Those are facts. Those are very, very definitive facts that you can look up on the Secretary of State's website. Anyone can look. It's coming from out of state. We have a few people running around the state getting signatures. We had a lot of paid signatures, which is fine. It's legal. I'm not going to chastise them, but these are facts that people need to understand. The other thing we have to understand, there's a lot of people that support this because they think it's going to change Washington, D.C. politics. Folks, this does nothing for congressional races. This limits your ability, your freedom, your responsibility. It will make you a lazier voter because you think you hit the easy button, and there is no easy button in politics. And now here we are. We're going to kick someone out like Rick Becker, that's beloved by most of the people watching this right now. He helped get some very important bills across the finish line in the last session that he wouldn't have been there for. He would not have been there for that. And the new guy coming in wouldn't have been able to get them across the finish line because they had no idea how the process works to get it done. But those that were owned by the agencies, because we're empowering agencies. You talk about, you want to mention corruption in our legislature and the power. There's power grab there. Well, we're just going to transfer the power even more to the bureaucrats, folks. That's a fact. We already have them not giving us full information. We will have them giving us less information because you won't have the knowledge in the chamber to know whether they're being the wool pulled over their eyes or not. Those are facts. So here's a question. Most of you on here are relatively new to state politics compared to me. Okay. I testified at the state legislature on private property rights bills, ability to do business on my property the way I see fit, at the age of 22 years old. I stayed engaged. I kept testifying as an individual. That gave me the passion to get involved to an organization that, yes, North Dakota Farm Bureau does have lobbyists. But you know what? Our lobbyists do exactly what you and others on this page listening right now complain the Republican Party doesn't do. You complain that the Republican Party doesn't adhere to their policies, to their platform. Guess what? Our lobbyists conform to the policy passed by the grassroots membership, those 29,000 member families that have representation at our annual meetings and pass that policy. We are not a big money lobbyist. We are not a big money PAC. We will not control the people coming in there. The big money buying PACs or the big money buying individuals will have them groomed every 8 years and loaded in the chute with the next one.
Okay.
That's a fact.
So that's 5 minutes. Luke, do you have something quick to say? Just under a
Sure.
minute, please.
Yep. So what I'd like to say is actually I would like to address Carrie Kettlecorn's.
That's where I was going to go next with it. So let's just do this.
So what we're doing, Carrie, is working. It's absolutely working. I'll just say a quick story. One time I was on my way out of quitting the legislature. It was just nasty what was going on. I was voting, and Rick caught me at the back door. Maybe I was just being a big baby. I can admit that. And Rick Becker caught me at the back door, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "I'm quitting, man. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to call my chairman right now and tell him to replace me." And he said, why is that? And I said, well, I'm surrounded by a bunch of rhinos in here. This is ridiculous. And Rick looked at me and goes, good thing I didn't do that when I was here by myself. Ooh, well, that hurt. But what I'm saying is why did I get involved? Because I seen someone like Rick Becker. And then once I got there, I realized, well, hey, there's a couple more guys here too that are awesome. And there was a battle cry. It's working. I have seen legislators from one person, Kerry, you're one of them, that put pressure on legislators by just typing and talking to them. That just makes them want to quit. They're cringing and wanting to be done. Now, maybe you guys couldn't see that, but I was in the smoke-filled rooms. I seen it happening, and it's working. I mean, we're filling the legislature up. We are filling the legislature up with conservatives. That's right. We are. Us conservatives sometimes have a tendency to talk a little negative.
Oh, Luke, we lost you.
The Russians did it.
Hey, oh, there he is. Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that. I'm getting a phone call. He'll probably call back. So I am just seeing the opposite. It is happening tremendously. I am seeing conservatives get involved. And Jeff, you kind of made a good point. The governor, with all his money, couldn't beat you. Why? Because you worked your tail off. And this is supposed to be a hard job. It's not easy. You have to get out there and pound the ground. You have to get out there and tell people the real issues. There is no easy button here. There's no free sandwich. There's no Obama phones that are going to fix all this stuff. We got to get after it. We got to hit the ground. And I'm so tired of people saying, well, it's just not easy. I'd like to get involved, but no one said it was easy. God didn't say do this because it's easy. He said do it because it's right. And it's hard work.
I'm going to give Jeff an opportunity here to answer. Let's talk about getting people involved. I mean, I think that is probably the next step in this. So, Jeff, if you'd like to comment on that.
Well, do you want to skip Mike? He didn't get his round. It'd be his.
I was going to get Mike after you.
Okay. Well, the thing is I think Luke's wrong about that. No offense, Luke, but we've lost most of our conservatives. Becker's gone in the House. Luke's gone. Dan Johnson's gone. McWilliams, Kading, Ertel, Kathy Scott. Who knows if she'll make it back? I mean, we don't know what the makeup is going to be. It looks to me like we're going backwards, is what I think. And as far as some of the comments, I mean, like you say, working your tail off, and that is, we did work our tail off, but yet our voting participation was way down. It was the worst voting participation since 2020. We literally went out and begged for votes. There's no way to get these people motivated. They have lost interest. They don't believe in the elections anymore because we got a crooked Secretary of State. And back to a couple comments, like Daryl said, Marcy's Law was passed with big money, he's saying. Same with the ethics. What has anybody done to stop that? You said you were involved since you were 22. You've seen all this stuff happen. Why didn't you guys have some campaign finance reform? Well, you can't sit on your hands and not promote any legislation to stop outside money and then complain when there's outside money being used, because it is lawful. And the other thing is, Rick would have still been in if he would have ran for the Senate. Under this term limit measure, you can serve 8 years in the House and 8 years in the Senate. Rick could have went and run for the Senate and been in another. He could have been in 8 and 8. He could have served 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate and took his expertise to the Senate and helped the other guy on the House side coming in. Or maybe the senator that was there, she retired, but maybe she would have wanted to run for the House because her comment was the Senate is a toxic environment. That's why she retired. So maybe she would have stayed in if she would have went to the House. Not that I'm saying that would have been good or bad, but she could have went to the House. Rick could have went to the Senate, and they could have both done a wonderful job and helped people on the other side. It would have created continuity instead of Senate members looking down on the House and House members looking down at the Senate. You would have people going across the aisle and everybody be like, hey, I remember working with you on the other side, or hey, have fun on the other side, and then they're going to learn both sides, what the Senate goes through and what the House goes through. Most of the House members have no idea what it's like on the Senate side and vice versa. And since I'm going into the Senate, I already see it's quite different just from the people, and there's half as many people. So and as far as the bureaucrats having power, it's the long-term legislators that empower the bureaucrats because they're all buddies. I've seen it time and again. These people will come in from miles around on their own dime, take the day off, and they'll stand in line, wait for hours to testify. And then at the end, the chairman says he's all buddies with the bureaucrat and get up and say, "Oh, how was your weekend? Oh yeah, I appreciated your daughter's wedding. We had a blast, And by the way, come on up. We want to hear from the expert." And then the expert bureaucrat that's in buddies with the long-term legislature will get up there and he'll tell his spiel, and all of a sudden the committee listens to the bureaucrat, and all the testimony by the people of North Dakota just goes out the window.
Okay, so guys, if I can, let me give some color to what Jeff just gave there, because I've got one of the better examples, I believe, of exactly that concept. So I'm going to try to do this throughout. I'm going to try to do all of this without names. So hopefully you guys can follow the positions as I move through this stuff. Okay. So following the 2020 election, there was a lot of talk about election integrity. Okay. It's still going on today, 2 years later. Jeff and as well as Jeff Hoverson both serve on the GVA committee in the House. The chairman of that committee is a very good conservative, a friend, somebody that I care about and hope does well. The vice chair of that committee as well. The House Assistant Majority Leader is on that committee as well. Those three came together to write a bill. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. The Secretary of State's office wrote a bill, worked with three long-standing powerful House members on the GVA committee to put together an omnibus election bill. Okay. There were more than 40 bills introduced in the House during that session around elections. One of them was mine that I wrote with Jeff Hoverson. I believe the most comprehensive. I'm a little, put off by the fact that my bill didn't go anywhere, but I can tell you exactly why it didn't. Because those three powerful House members, long-standing House members, the exact guys that Daryl and Luke would say are our stalwarts and are going to stand behind us, and they're the ones we have to count on, brought an omnibus bill that gave the entire government cover on elections. The good bills went down 86-7 or whatever they were. They did a do-nothing bill that cleaned up a bunch of language. It was House Bill 1253. Go back and take a look at it. Sponsored by the three that I just brought up a minute ago, written by the Secretary of State's office. Jeff, you sat in all of those all of those committee meetings, exactly as he said. The Association of Counties testifying against the people. The Secretary of State's office, the Deputy Secretary of State, testifying against the people. The leaders that you guys say are the saviors are the ones who turned on us, and we got no election reform during that session. And we sit with the same election laws today. The governor right now could choose to close polling places today because we didn't fix that in the laws. Do you guys realize that? We didn't change election law one iota after the mess that was 2020. We cleaned up some language. We fixed a small issue around a legislator dying before they could take office. That's what we fixed in that bill. None of the substantive bills went anywhere, and the three stalwart conservatives I would back on anything else were the main ones behind undermining what we needed to do. That's what term limits can help to fix.
Okay. Daryl or Luke, who wants to go first in the rebuttal?
So when we talk about this, we talk about it. You guys make it sound like none of this will ever happen again. Guess what? Right. It'll still happen the same way. It just be with legislators that have less time in there and less experience. It's still going to happen because the big money and the bureaucrats in the agencies will have the people lined up to stack the deck every 8 years. They will have the budget. Let's look at it this way. Governor Burgum will be able to budget exactly what he needs to spend every 4 years and every 8 years because he knows exactly who's being termed out and he knows exactly who he wants to fill in there. And our voters are going to be more complacent, because if they have a bad legislator, they're going to go, it ain't worth fighting them because they're going to be gone in 4 years. So we're going to have the same thing. Everything you guys talked about, yeah, shame on them. Absolutely right, Mike. Shame on them. But you know what? We're going to be saying the same thing. Shame on them. Because I'm pretty in tune with many other states in their politics and the people involved in them. They have the same problems. They have the same complaints in Montana. They have the same complaints about their legislators in South Dakota. They have their same complaints about legislators in Michigan that has term limits. They have their same complaints about their legislators in Florida that has term limits. They have the same, what you guys call corruption going on. It's just more well-owned and more well-oiled. And it does not solve that issue. There is no silver bullet here. It is a boots on the ground. If there's going to be possibly up to 30, I think it's 30 plus freshmen this year in the legislature. We had an 18-year-old right out of high school, worked his butt off, was the high vote getter in the three-way race, bumped an incumbent. We had a first-time candidate bump a highly backed senator in District 33. That's bumped right. Because of work and boots on the ground. And get back to the point that Jeff made earlier, well, I had to work to get that. Not everybody has that time. It's still going to go to the one that puts the work in. So you're still going to have the time to do it. This does not change that fact. We're thinking things are going to magically change, and this is going to be a Wonder Bread truck coming by with a truckload of conservatives and dump off at the Capitol. I don't get it. I am not going to shirk my responsibility. And I do believe if our federal Constitution laid out, and you know what? They didn't hardly agree on anything unanimously in that Constitution, by the way, Mike. In fact, it's not supposed to be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's supposed to be property. They folded on that one, too. Mm-hmm. Okay? You know what else they folded on? They folded on the fact some of them wanted and fought hard for, you should have to be a property owner to have the right to vote. They folded on that one.
It's true.
So to bring this up that, our founding fathers, they wanted the term limits. Yeah, some of them did, some of them didn't. Some of them wanted property instead of pursuit of happiness. Some of them wanted to own land to vote or property to vote, which would have been a house. Small. It didn't matter the size. It just, you had to be a property owner. But that didn't work neither. But their intention of this country was, and no, if we change our Constitution here, you're 100% right. I think we're just damn fools to do it. We can change it. But we're going against. I value the United States Constitution, the freedom it laid out there. That's where our original freedom got enshrined. Our God-given freedom got enshrined in our federal Constitution. It got backed up in our state Constitution. Okay, our liberty, our life got enshrined in the federal Constitution. Those God-given things got enshrined in the federal Constitution. I'm not willing to change our Constitution here in North Dakota to go against the freedoms that were enshrined in that one and the responsibility of an electorate that comes with that freedom.
So, hey, Shilo, if I may, one
Sure.
quick, fast answer question, you guys. Are you okay with the presidential term limits?
Of course.
Why is that?
Well, I'll answer it in our founding fathers' terms. When you control the United States military, you have too much power. Literally, you have too much power. So if you control the United States military, you could literally stronghold the United States government as a whole. You could literally do it. And that wasn't me saying that. That's not me answering that. Our founding fathers believed that. The commander-in-chief of the military needed to be term limited out because historically the Greeks, the Romans, the British, the French, if you have that power, the ability to control the United States military, and all of that access is yours. That's exactly what happened to Rome. Time and time, Rome got ransacked because of things like that. That's what our founding fathers said about that. So absolutely, there's too much power
Well,
in that top.
they some may have believed that Washington actually was not a firm believer in term limits. He did decide to leave, but not exactly the way most people think of it. And so term limits for the presidency came in after FDR, though. So Daryl, how about you? Do you think that term limits for the presidency are correct?
Yeah, I do. And you know what? I would go this far to say that if this was just about governor term limits in North Dakota, I'd be supporting it. And here's the reason why, Mike, to answer your question. Because the power of appointment, the power of the pen, can change the dynamics in government for decades. Decades.
Yep.
And therefore, they can do enough damage in 8 years that they should not be ingrained to allow any more than 8 years of appointment power, where those appointees then do the hiring. And then we have bureaucrats that are 20, 30, 40 years in those positions. We don't have an elected legislative issue and lack of turnover. We have a bureaucrat stronghold and lack of turnover.
Yeah,
and so
and
therefore, in the executive positions, because it's apples and oranges, in executive positions, I agree 100%.
Okay.
So I have just a quick question before you guys continue this conversation. With this term limits, is it state legislature only, or does it include the governor?
Yes,
Yeah.
it includes the governor.
Includes the governor and our state legislature, and who else? Anyone else?
That's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yep, no county. And then we got to clear this up, because there's people that think that all the statewide are going to be term limited. They think their county commissioners are going to be term limited. No, folks. You have to look at the state Senate, the state House, and the governor. That's it. Let's correct people. And I have seen people that support this, that were probably carrying petitions, ignore the question without a direct enough answer to really be fully informing the people of what it really did. And that bugged me.
Yeah.
And it bugs me till this day, because there's still some that are going, no, it doesn't include that. And they go right on to another subject because they don't want to dwell on the facts of who is and who isn't, because it may change a percentage or two of people's minds, because it's not what they think it is. And so we need to make sure that's out there.
It should be clear. Exactly right. Because again, it gets back to, whether we've got an informed populace when they're going to vote. We've got to get this stuff right. And that gets a little into what the Secretary of State did with this as well, and how it's going to be titled and how it's going to show. And, there's a lot of dynamics going on in this whole thing.
Can I just say something here? Because I've got to apologize, Shilo. I'm going to have to jump off here in a few minutes. What they did to that signature process and that petition process was wrong. The Supreme Court made the right decision.
Yeah.
It's just too bad it was hooked to this terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't even say that jokingly.
Yep.
I say it with all sincerity, because all this is, and I'm going to have to jump off, and you guys can beat me up when I leave. I'm fine with that. But I think that we're looking for the silver bullet fix, and people that think that they've worked really hard at trying to change things. And most people that are saying that have been involved in less than 10 years in the state politics. And I can tell you, I was a district chair in 2008 to 2014. Okay. I was the Lone Ranger in district chairs, ratting out what you guys call rhinos, holding the feet to the fire of a state elected representative that went to the White House, Obama White House, to participate in a committee about cap and trade legislation and policy that he was pushing. I called him out. I sent an email to every district chair in the state calling, there was two of them, but one was going to be on the committee fully, And you know what? I was the Lone Ranger. But you know what that did? For the first time in a long time, that district that they were in that was getting 25 and 30 people at their meeting had over 300 people show up at their meeting that year. He still won, but that engaged folks. But I was the Lone Ranger. I got my butt chewed more than I can count on two hands by other district chairs. I am so glad that you guys, even if we disagree, Jeff, even if we disagree, Mike, I am so glad that there are more people in this battle now.
Right.
But it seems like we're laying down looking for the easy way out of the battle. And it's just going to get bloodier in the future, I believe, if we lay down on this battle.
Well, and Daryl, you know, just back at you. I mean, we all appreciate so much what you're doing and the steps that you've taken now, especially recently. Because yeah, we'll disagree a little bit on here, and that's okay. But you know what? The group that's on this call and hopefully the people that are watching, they have like minds and we have a lot of things that we agree on, and we are in the battle together. You know, I left the battle for a while. I was a district chair in 2000. You know, and fought some of the battles back in those days. It's a different set today than it was back then. We actually had Democrats to run against back in those days. And so, you know, things have changed a lot. But Daryl, from all, what's that?
Now we run with them in our districts.
Oh, I know. That's the thing. Exactly. So Daryl, from, you know, hopefully I talk on behalf of a lot of us. Thanks for what you're doing. We appreciate it.
Well, and I agree with that. And this is, Luke said it right. We as conservatives, we can come together. We can have these debates. We should be able to have these debates, and we should be able to walk away at the end of the day and go, "Hey, I know I got friends that are wrong. I just have to accept that." So I just
Daryl, they even have a constitutional right to be wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah. I fully support them in that.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
well,
guys. Really appreciate it. I do have to get off because I got to call some folks about tomorrow morning's show. So.
All right.
Thank you, Daryl. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Shilo.
Yes.
Shilo, can I take us down maybe a little different part of the discussion here, if that's okay with everybody?
It's okay with me.
So one of the things that I did, guys, I went back. I wanted to look at some of the literature out there on what's happened, because one of the things that I love about the United States and our federalist system is that we've got the laboratories in the states. Correct. So we've had, as I mentioned before, we've had 20 states take on some form of term limits. It began around 1990 and really is going to this day with 15. We're working right now to become the 16th. And there's been studies that, and very good studies. And the one that I'm going to talk about a little bit is one that it was actually, the main part of it was a survey of legislators at different points in time as this was going on in the states. And so what it was, so there's some rough, you know, let's say 8,000 legislators in the country at any one time. They were able to get about 40% of them to return a survey explaining their thoughts on term limits and what they were seeing in their states. And I'm just going to give some quick bullets of what they found, because some of them they fit exactly the things that, you know, for and against that people say, but some of them actually didn't at all. And legislators and the writers of the study were actually kind of interested in that. So here's quickly the 5 arguments I would say are for term limits out of those studies. Number 1, voter turnout should be predicted to increase by about 6%. Okay, so that just the idea that there are more competitive races, and that goes into the next couple bullets, fewer unchallenged races and more open seat races should be expected. And a couple that I really liked, legislators reported more of a focus on statewide thinking versus only their district. So they thought big picture, as opposed to, and that goes with the next one, they reported less interest in bringing home pork. Okay, so again, these are the good things. There are bad, and I'll get to those in a second, at least for my point of view. And the last one, and this is an interesting one, the power of the political party is diminished. And on average, I thought of that as a positive, I think. I'm not sure, you know, but again, that's what they found. The power of the party, and particularly majority leaders and things like that, their power was diminished. And that's part of the arguments against now. So governors and other executive branch agencies gain power. Exactly what we probably would all think, right? If we've got newer people coming into the legislature, the bureaucracy, the government itself is going to be able to lord that over them a little more. And then term limits reduce the incentive for legislators to invest in policy learning. That one's a little bit scary to me, from my point of view. And so that's one, again, that probably fits. That fits with what the stereotype would be of what's happening. Okay. So that's the first set. Now, here's the interesting ones. And I know I'm throwing a ton at you. I'm reading it off a screen, but here's an interesting one. No reported change in the demographics or makeups of the legislatures. So it was still the same number of lawyers, business owners, real estate agents. It didn't change by gender. There was a little of that early on. Didn't change by race. They didn't see any marked change in demographics. Lobbyist influence would be expected to be about the same. So what it is they're going to lose their best buddies, but they're going to gain back newbies that are easily influenced, is the general concept. And I think that makes sense. If you think your way through it. Fiscal restraint cannot be tied to term limits. We shouldn't expect that to be fixed in any way by passing a term limits amendment. Campaign spending is unchanged. Party chamber leadership lost power versus the members of the chamber. So what that means is that the rank and file actually gained power over party leadership, is what they found through that survey. And so again, I know that was a ton to throw out. I'll back off now if there's any comments either of you want to kind of throw into that. But I thought it was interesting because it was I felt a really good study where they didn't seem to have an agenda whatsoever. It was very factual, and it was based on a survey of sitting legislators.
Let's go with Mr. Magrum first.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike, because I was reading a lot of stuff too the last couple of weeks too, and they interviewed some of the Arizona legislators, and they felt that they would never give up the term limits. They love it. They said there's a little bit, seems like the governor may have gotten a little more power, but one thing you have to remember, this does term limit the governor as well. So it would be a new governor all the time. But they said that overall, they feel like they've actually achieved, and this information is out there for anybody to find. They actually feel like they've actually achieved a true citizen legislature now in Arizona. And I mean, these are powerful quotes from many of the legislatures, but there's been comments made like, this isn't the silver bullet. Well, I know I bought several old houses in my life, and you start somewhere when you want to fix it up. Usually the foundation. Make sure you got a good foundation. Right now, our state government is in total disrepair, in my opinion. From what I've seen, it's bad. I mean, we're way overspending. We're attacking people's rights, on and on. I mean, I could go on about that from what I've seen on the inside. Luke's seen it, and Luke's been the victim of a lot of that corruption and evil that's going on in there. So to assume that this isn't going to change anything is just that. It's an assumption, because you have to start. You have to start with something. And as far as adding other offices to this, many of the states, like Montana, have Secretary of State, Attorney General. They even have the superintendent of schools, state auditor, and state treasurer. Now, they're all term limited to 8 years. Now, you might look at Josh Gallion and say, well, we don't want to lose Josh Gallion. He's a great state auditor. But guess what? Maybe Josh Gallion's going to run for governor. And he would really be awesome as governor. So, I mean, it would keep people moving instead of getting comfortable and stagnant. So what are we afraid of? I mean, it's working in the other states. There are 2 states right around us. They're happy with it overall. Yes, there's always going to be people that are dissatisfied. But I think overall, if it was so bad, there's no doubt in my mind that there would have been a move to change it by now. And since 1992, I mean, 30 years later, they haven't changed anything yet. So, and sometimes change is good. It's not going to, it never hurts to change things up a little bit and look at something different. And if it was so bad, it's not it's not like you can't change it back. So you can change it back if it was something we realized like, oops, we messed up. Maybe we should change it back. All we got to do is reverse it. Same way we got it on the ballot. So I don't understand them arguments at all. So, but yeah, if people look and Google term limits, there's a lot of comments out there on the internet. U.S. Term Limits is a really good resource. They have a lot of good information about what's going on in the states. 36 states term limit their governor. I mean, there's just no reason we shouldn't term limit our governor. But like Mike said, 15, we would be the 8th one with the 8 and 8. And so I think we should do it. I really do. I do believe it's going to help. It's not going to fix everything, but it's definitely going to help.
Luke, I'll give you a chance to rebuttal here, and then we're gonna go on. I got a question for you guys to wrap this up. So,
Okay, well, as long as that answer is not fixed and answered, that is the point. And the point should be the point. Most people in their district do not know who their senator is. They do not know their legislator name, their names. They just don't. They just do not. Research has shown that people go to the voting booth with one person, possibly two, that they know who that. In America, this is the information age. You should not have any oh, I'm getting distracted here. We should not have any kind of going off the rails here, guys. Sorry about that. I guess what I'm saying is as long as that question is not being answered, it's undebatable. It's non-debatable. People need to know what's going on. Most of the people that I talk to that are for term limits have never been to a Republican meeting. And if they do, they want to burn the place down after their first or second meeting, and then they're all mad. I mean, Jeff, Mike, you guys probably were both there in 2007 when they shut the mics down on us. Remember that? I mean, that was a big deal.
Luke, go ahead and answer how you're going to get people involved. I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that when I got kicked out of the legislature, that was a bad thing. I thought it was a great thing. Martyrdom is a great thing. How many people got censored when they went home? How many people got censored when they went home? Was it 6, 7, 8?
But Luke, we had the lowest voter turnout in the primary since 2000, even after that.
So, but we still put in 20 people, and a lot of those people are on our side. Like you said, we lost Rick Becker. He replaced himself. We lost Sebastian. Yeah, that's true. We did lose Sebastian. We could lose a lot of different people, but we're also winning a lot of different people. So excitement creates excitement. Like it's a huge deal. Like what's happening is we're winning. We're winning. Like Rick Becker almost won. If in my opinion, if John Hoeven wasn't cheating and bringing buses in, he would have won. That's a big deal. We're winning. We're totally winning. You know, Jeff.
Sorry, Luke.
Yeah. No. Oh no. We're.
Well, you want to share some of that stuff you're smoking with me? Because I don't know. I don't know what you're seeing.
So Luke.
So what I'm saying
no
is,
offense.
No, that's fine. What I'm saying is it's working. It's absolutely working. I have a barber shop. People come into my barber shop all the time and they tell me, your chairman, I voted for him. He's a friend of mine. He's a neighbor. But I have been watching your Facebook so long. I agree with everything you're saying, and I disagree with my friend that I showed up to vote against your brother for. And it's winning. This is a battle of ideology. This is why Ron Paul called it the revolution, because it's the revolution of the mind. We're winning here. Why is it that a multi-billionaire, Jeff, a multi-billionaire Bill Gates puppet, doesn't like you? Why is it that he's spending millions of dollars on you? because you're being effective. Jeff Magrum, the plumber, is effective. And he's unstoppable. And the little pit bull, well, actually, he's the bulldog, his
Yeah, I
white
thought it was
pit
my
bull.
good looks. You're making me feel bad.
You know,
So,
Jeff, you are effective. You're making people that have big degrees that are non-stoppable. You're winning. You're winning. That's how this works. If people don't want to get out and when the Democrats came after me big time, I just started my barbershop up again and said, I thought, screw you all. I'll just get to know the people again. That's how you do this. We're winning. We're totally winning across the whole state.
Well,
Jeff, up here,
when this measure passes, then we'll really truly move the needle on winning.
I couldn't
That's when we're going to
disagree with
really
you more.
start winning. Yeah.
so before Luke started, that was going to be my question is I would like to hear from all three of you on what can we do to get people involved, because I think that's the big elephant in the room is what can we do? Like say for myself, I just recently in 2 years have gotten involved, and to tell that quick story is I was supposed to go to a rally in Williston, and I had it planned for a couple weeks after they made the announcement. And I come home that night, I was dog tired, and I told my wife, "I'm not gonna go. I'm tired. I want to. I rode like 13 or 14 horses that day. I was just dog tired." And she goes, "Well, you've had this plan for quite a while, and I really think you should go." So we kind of visited about it a little bit, and at that point in time, I had already been late. So I showed up a half hour late. Fast forward, I showed up a half hour late to that event, and it was one of the most important nights in my life. To the fact that I met a lot of great people, including Luke Simons himself. I met Jared Hendricks. I met the people from the Sons of Liberty, which I got involved with. I met my district chairman, and I didn't know how any of this went. And so if she wouldn't have pushed me that night to go to one of these deals, who knows what would have happened. So I guess with that long story aside, we'll start with you, Mike. How can we get people involved? Let's put term limits and everything aside. Let's talk about getting people involved.
I think you've got it exactly right, Shilo. What's powerful in all of this is when people grab onto what makes them tick. Okay, so an example I'll give you is a good friend of mine in the Minot area, District 3 Chair Amber Vibetto, who's the head of North Dakota CAN, used to be called North Dakota Conservative Advocates. Someone who is out fighting the battle in the area of gender, of all the different things going on in the schools, bringing in national speakers, all of these different things. That group has brought together a bunch of people that are like-minded. The same thing with the health freedom groups that are going on. The Sons of Liberty are a great example. Just getting involved and getting the little pockets going and then plugging them together. I think the plugging together is the bit of the challenge right now. I think, Jeff, maybe a minute ago, you talked about the lowest turnout election in the primary. And that's a scary thought to me. Now, the flip side of that is that I would hate to have high election turnout where nobody knows a thing about what's going on. That's a very scary thought, is people coming in aimlessly voting for something they know nothing about. I'd rather actually have a low information or a low voter turnout where people actually knew what they were doing. I would take that as the alternative. And so, Shilo, that's my thought is we've got to support and continue to grow these different grassroots groups that naturally bring together like-minded people and then plug them in. And, we've got other stuff going on. I've been involved from the very beginning with the Dakotan and Minot. A new news source that is going to continue to grow and move the needle long term. That's something that we sorely need, and it's only going to get better from here. Beck is another great opportunity.
Yes.
K-Fire with Daryl now doing so much.
Wow.
As Luke said, we've got a ton of stuff going in the right direction right now, and the people are activating but it's slow. And so we need to keep going. And one thing that I will throw out, and this is, I apologize, guys, a little plug. We'd love to have any of you on November 3rd. We're having it'll be about the 4th annual, but the 2nd annual huge rally that we're having in Minot, big gun raffle. We're going to have Daniel Gade, who's the head of the VA in Virginia, a former Minot guy, grew up in Minot, Purple Heart winner, lost a leg in the military, and is an amazing speaker who's going to talk about sacrifice and what it means to sacrifice for your country, for your state, all of those things. And so anyone that can make it, dakotapatriotrally.com is where you can see info on that. It's going to be a great night. Anybody that can make it, please do. And it's something that we're doing to try to move the needle up here, and hopefully bring that to the rest of the state.
Mike, if I could just interject real quick, if anybody in the Dickinson area wants to buy some of those raffle tickets, I've got raffle tickets, and these aren't just any ordinary guns. I'm telling you, these are not Walmart guns. These are top dollar Christensen Arms type rifles. These are wonderful rifles. And isn't it fun, Mike? It is. We disagree on this subject, but we are like 100% brothers on this whole thing.
What's the event called, Mike? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Put dakotapatriotrally.com.
Okay.
Yeah, great. And this is for the conservatives. I will just say this is the second largest fundraiser in the whole state. And this money goes to just conservatives. That's awesome. That is the awesome facility. And I've got a friend that actually is putting a pack together, Mrs. Kettlecorn. And I'll tell you what, this is exactly what we're going to do. Mike, actually, Mrs. Kettlecorn, that's her code name. We'll have to hook you up later to kind of get the boats bumping there.
No, and that's actually the direction that we've gone as well, Luke, is we've our districts are flush with cash because of the fundraising that we've done. We've got some powerhouse fundraisers in the Minot area. We know what we're doing up here. And so that's the direction that we're going as well. The Dakota Patriot Pack is something that we've started, and we are headed in a direction that I believe will move the needle as the years go by.
Okay, if I could, Jeff, if you'd, excuse me, if you'd like to give an answer here on the question on how do you think that we can get people involved?
Well, if I was the governor, Burgum, I would just pay him. He's doing a real good job of getting people involved. But that's the simple answer. The hard answer is it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. We've done it here in our district, but it took several of us, a lot of phone calls, a lot of talking to people. There's a lot of people out there that are single issue people, whether it's pro-life, whether it's pro-gun, whatever, it might be election integrity. But what I found out, and most people run on emotion. Like when the COVID hit, the reason we had such a good session this last session was because of the COVID. People were bent out of shape. They wanted to voice their opinion. And these long-term legislators and the governor were not budging. They wanted to have everything locked down. They wanted to have everybody in a mask. They wanted to have so you see that really motivated people. But them same people have worn out. Their emotions have gotten back into check, and they've worn out. Because I seen that this last election cycle, we literally had to go out and try to get them same people, and others started, and some of them didn't come back. They're like, no, I've lost interest. It's way out of whack. I mean, they don't listen to us. We went to the Capitol 5 times last session, took our days off and spent our money on gas, and these legislators don't listen. And so to get them involved, it takes people that are steadfast, that have to stay on it, continually calling them. There's a meeting, there's a rally, you got to have people doing this all the time to get them off the couch. And it wears the ones out that are doing that are trying to get them out. Hey, we got a convention coming up. Well, then you got to explain what the convention is. how does this all work? And most of them, when they go, they're happy they went. But then the next time, 2 years later, we had a convention, the same ones who didn't want to go. They're like, yeah, I'm going to this ball game, or I'm going to go ice fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't, we have to face the fact that it's always going to be a small amount of people running the government. 3% of the population fought not the Civil War, but we're behind boy, I'm losing my mind here. The War of Independence was really led by a small group of people. And so, that's where it's never really changed. It's always been the small group. And so there's no simple answer other than hard work and effort. And I myself, I've done, like Luke said, I've reached out to people in my area, and I know he has his, and Mike hasn't his, and we've all done that, but we're going to wear out. If there isn't somebody to pick up the slack behind us, it's just, and we've seen the low interest in the primary. The lowest in 22 years, even after COVID, with all the things going on in this country, people still were not willing to vote. And it's so easy now with the absentee ballots and the mail-in voting and going to the polling place. And still, I didn't know how to feel after this primary, because people that said they were going to vote for us, we checked the voter rolls after, they didn't even go vote for us. Yeah, we felt bad, but you don't want to go ask them, like, why did you go vote? We should maybe just to see if they maybe forgot or something came up. But it was discouraging to me to see that these same people that were fired up less than 2 years ago have already gone back to the same old lifestyle and forgot about why they were involved, it seems like.
Well, and I'd like to take a page out of Rick Becker's book, because it's kind of come to me a few different ways from different people. But what we're doing right here, having a discussion, and yes, we don't necessarily agree, but we're able to take the emotion out of it and sit down and have a conversation. And we're all going to go home tonight, and we're also going to be friends and be able to pick up the phone tomorrow and call each other and get along. So I think that is something that that we as a society need to get back to. Rick is constantly saying, go and talk to 10 of your friends. If you care about this election, talk to 10 people, just 10 people. I've tried to do that up here in Ray, where I'm at. Is I talk to people. I've given out signs. I've got the paperwork off of his website. So I do believe that is something else too that we can do, and that's pretty much what you've said. But I agree with Rick on that idea of just go, even if it's 5 people. That's 5 more people that you got their wheels turning anyway. And who knows? Even if they don't go vote for who you were talking about, and they vote for the opponent, at least they're taking part. So, Luke, do you have anything to add? And then I'm going to have one more question to end the night.
Okay, so John Adams knew how to keep a fire going. And the reason I say that is because people were forgetting that the English were taking everything from the colonialist, and they were just forgetting. So John Adams was taking a tally, and in that tally, he would go to these protests where the people were all mad, but they were only coming, like you said, Jeff, for one subject. And Adams started going around and saying, you remember when they took Farmer Joe's milk cow for the general, and they ate the cow and wasted most of it and didn't reimburse them? You remember when so-and-so was accidentally shot by the redcoat? Or do you remember when the redcoats raped 3 redcoats raped 1 lady? And he put these bugs in people's ears, and the people started getting furious. They started getting furious. And that's really how this happens all throughout the Bible. We see that it's been less than 3% of people. A lot of times how many prophets did it take to wake up Israel? Just one. That's all it really took. And we read about Elijah, where he was in a cave and he was saying, Lord, just kill me. I'm done. Jeff, he was right there with you. He was saying, I'm here by myself. There is nobody coming. And God, I mean, whatever he fed those, Elijah with the ravens, I'm telling you, that was some superfood there. But that's exactly what's happening. So don't be weary in well doing, the Bible says. This is what we do. This is who we are. We are Christians. And as Christians, we've always fought giants. Can you imagine? I heard one story one time where, kind of a neat story. The little boy was working with his daddy, and his dad after church one time, and he said, Daddy, Goliath was really brave. And his dad goes, no, Goliath wasn't brave. He goes, man, he thought his son was a little messed up. And he goes, no, Dad, Goliath was brave. See, Goliath stood out there all alone, but David had God on his side. Sometimes we have to just remember who we are standing up for here. Like, we are children of God. Noah didn't have a lot of help saving humanity, but he saved humanity. And it took him a long time to do it. And a lot of people made fun of him. This is what we do. This is in our DNA as Christians, to just stand up and go forward. The bulldog just keeps going on. Jeff, you know why a bulldog's nose is slanted back? So it can hold on and keep breathing. That's what it does. And that's why they hate you, Jeff. It's awesome. My dad, one time, he was working on this guy's house, actually in your district, Jeff. And this guy was, he was out there politically. My dad said he had signs, get us out of the UN, bury your guns, the UN is coming. And my dad, and he was working on this house all by himself. It was a 3-story house out in the middle of nowhere. And my dad, my dad's really smart. And so this guy comes along and he goosed my dad kind of. He's old. He'd be like, Thomas Jefferson once said, and my dad would just be like surprised because he was out there by himself. Well, my dad, little did he know, he would do that to us boys as we were working. And my little mind was just recording all the time. It was just recording. And one time my dad asked me after I became a legislator, he said, how in the world did you become so conservative? And without blinking, Dad, you taught me to be this way. All those quotes from our founding fathers was in my mind. What I'm saying is though it seems like we are here alone. Remember what Madison said? He said, once people understand what we're doing here, it'll be like a brush fire in the minds of men, and it won't be quenched. Look at Mrs. Christensen, Grandma Christensen. Jeff, what does she mean to you? What does she mean to you?
Oh, I love her.
She's awesome. We watched Mrs. Christensen stop the whole Senate and House in one debate. No joke. Like, we watched it happen. It was amazing. Then there was a gentleman, I won't mention his name. He bumped into Rich Wardner, and it just happens to be on video. If you guys recall what I'm talking about, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but he bumped into Rich Wardner, and Rich Wardner, the leader of the Senate, and this guy who is a superstar, by the way. This guy antes up. He's a good man. This guy, he doesn't care who this guy is. He could have been the janitor for all this guy cared, and he flat out let him have it. Well, I'll tell you what. People watched that video, and they didn't like what our majority leader, the senator, Republican, had to say to that guy. Excitement creates excitement. The Bible says if you rebuke a wise man, he'll be wiser still. The Bible also says if you dig a pit for your enemy to fall into it, you yourself will fall into it. These so-called imposter Republicans, which they are digging a pit that when people expose, Jeff, you don't mind talking about your voting record, do you? No, you want to talk about your voting record. Why don't rhinos want to talk about their voting record?
Okay.
Why did they get mad at me for printing it? So what I'm saying is the news is getting out. We just have to be excited about it, folks. And don't stop talking to your grandchildren, your kids. They're listening. And if they have any intellectual power at all, that fire will ignite. And you just don't, you could be messing with the Apostle Paul. I mean, can you imagine poor Stephen sitting there by himself going, man, my whole life I preached one time, the Bible records, and here I am, I preached one time, and I'm getting stoned to death. But little did he know, the greatest apostle of them all, the Apostle Paul, was sitting there. And look what happened. He wrote most all the New Testament. You
Yeah.
just never know. It's exciting. It's exciting.
So we got about 9 minutes left here. I got one more question I want to ask you guys before the end of the show. So we've talked about how to get people involved. Let's talk about another issue that term limits kind of brings up is the candidates. Because let's face it, in a lot of people's eyes, we don't have a lot of good candidates to go against the quote unquote establishment. So with that being said, now I know that there's different tactics and different deals and whatever, but what is your guys' opinion? How do we get better candidates for these positions and get people to run? Mike, I'll start with you.
Well, I actually think that term limits is going to be a help to that. I think maybe Jeff mentioned it earlier. What's going to happen is you're going to have very good House and Senate members that are going to term out, and they're going to say, how can I continue to serve? And where are they going to go? That's actually what that study I talked about before exactly found. It found that's what they did. You still had the same amount of ambition, but you had to channel it to a different spot. And so we'll have a fabulous Secretary of State candidate that will come about. We'll have someone to follow Josh Gallion as the state auditor. We will have people that are already in the House and Senate today that are good conservative leaders ready to take those next steps because they don't have much choice. And so I actually think it's going to be a help. And then the other part of it is that, I can think of 3 names off the top of my head that serve today in the Senate. That one of the quotes that I kind of ran by my daughter this morning that I wrote, and I'll just say it for you guys right now. I would rather risk throwing out a few good eggs before they spoil than allow a few bad eggs to ruin the entire basket, because right now the bad eggs are ruining the basket, and it's time for a few of those bad eggs to go. And so term limits can help solve that.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Magrum?
Well, I feel like we had some pretty good candidates. Mike said it perfect. They came in pretty darn good. When I came in to the state legislature 6 years ago, Luke Simons, Dan Johnson, Aaron McWilliams, bunch of good ones. And I've seen some of them that are still in there just go totally awry. And they would have been looking at term limiting out or having to run for the Senate pretty quick, which would have changed things and shook it up. But, some of us stayed true as we could. I think we did, and some of them definitely didn't. So it's not that they weren't bad. They were bad coming in. It's that they got bad once they were in the inside. They got arrogant and they got sucked in by the establishment, and they liked that. They wanted to be in with the kind of a high school game up there where you feel like you need to be in with the in crowd. Yeah. And to stand alone, oh my gosh, I'm not going to stand alone. What if I have to push the red button by myself? Well, me, Luke and Becker and so on, we were never afraid of that. But others are, because you'll hear your name. Like when I'd be the only red button pusher for a bill, they go, you could hear them say, Magrum. It's like peer pressure, heavy peer pressure. But there's good, and I agree with Mike on his comment too. Definitely going to bring fresh ones in. I myself in District 8, we have a long bench of excellent candidates. I would be grooming and talking to them. Hey, I'm going to be done in 4 years, guys. Which one of you guys step up? And I would be willing to help them learn the process and all the information I could give them and mentor them rather than trying to hoard the information, because I would be jealous that I'm not going to share this information with him because he might run for election against me in 4 years. So I'm not telling him nothing. And then when you get in, and I've been in let's just say I've been in 8 years and I have aspirations of being a chairman, and Luke comes in. Well, Luke's a good looking young man and very talented, articulate, smart. And I'm not going to tell Luke anything I know. Why would I? Because he's going to take my chairmanship. So that's where you're going to get better candidates, is when people know they don't have to play those games. Because there's good guys out there. I run into a lot of good guys that I've tried to try to encourage to run, and they'll just say, you know what, I just the guy's incumbent. His name is so out there. He's so entrenched. The lobbyists are going to work for him. The governor's going to work for him. I mean, I just know I can't do it. It's just going to it's going to consume all my time, and I might lose. And so they just go, heck with it, and some of them go run for something else. Some of them just don't run for anything. And we never see what they can do. So yeah, term limits, I definitely believe is going to help on that matter.
Luke, you got 2 minutes.
Okay. So
Come on, Luke.
I was, I've never done that before in my life. So what I would say is I had a young scholar in my barbershop, and this was about 2 years ago. And he was literally a scholar. That's what he did for a living. And I asked him, he said, what are you trying to do? Because I always considered myself more of a lobbyist or an activist, more so than a state legislator. And I said, I'm trying to get my message out to the masses. And he went like this to me. And I was cutting his hair. And I said, you don't agree with that? He goes, no, I don't. He said, politically, that, historically, it's not a good concept. I said, could you please explain yourself? And he said, yes. He said, that's what the communists tried to do. That's what those kind of people try to do. He said, what you really should focus on is only focus on leaders. He said, that's what Jesus did. He focused on 12. That's what he did. So when you focus on a leader, it doesn't matter how big the mountain is in front of you. They push. That's what leaders do. They organize. No one said this is going to be easy. It's not easy. It's hard. You've got to push. That's everybody that's pushing, they're winning. That's how it works. It's how it's working. And you can always criticize somebody that didn't make an election or something, but you got to push. That's the door to success has a label on it. It says push. And there was a lot of people that, like, you want to go to war with England, the superpower of the world? What are you, nuts? Like, you talk about, there should have been term limits on tyranny. But there wasn't. There just was no term limits on tyranny. And people had to push. You have to ante up. And that's how we do this. You go in, you make a big stink, you expose, and people get fired up and go, you know what? If that Jeff Magrum can do that, I can do that. That's what I did. I was like, Rick Becker is doing that. Man, what am I doing for my children's sakes? And pretty soon, that's what I was doing. And there is no easy button. I have an easy button. Where is it? Somewhere around here. But it doesn't work.
I hit it the last time we were down there.
Yeah, where was it? I can't even see it.
Shoot. Well, at any rate, this has been a great show. I really appreciate you guys. Oh, look at it. It's defective.
That was easy. It works.
Well, at any rate, this has been a great show. I appreciate all three of you gentlemen being on, even you, Luke, and Daryl as well. Even though he had to leave early, I look forward to doing this again. We'll have to do this again on other issues, and I do appreciate you guys being on. So,
well, meaning this is our show, Shilo. Yeah. We can declare the winner, and we were clear winners. That other side just So, Mike, I have heard so much good things about you over the years. Just so you know, it is a pleasure to meet you, and I'd like to meet you in person sometime. If you are ever in Dickinson, let me know in advance, and I'll take you out for lunch or supper or something. You're a warrior, man, and I love it. You're just dead wrong on this subject, but other than that, you're a great guy.
Well, thanks, Luke. I appreciate that. And Shilo, I hope that, I don't know that we can find another issue that we're going to disagree on, but, I'm happy to debate anytime. We might have to bring in a ringer from another party or something to debate us at some point, but we did find one, so it's fun. And the good news is, like I said, to me, this isn't a silver bullet. Never was going to be. I think on average, we're better with it. That's really my take.
That was easy.
Jeff, Mr.
I
Magrum.
agree with what Mike just said. I think it's going to be better with it. But I appreciate you guys, really, what you're doing here, and this is part of what you have to do to get people involved. What you, Luke and Shilo, what you guys are doing here, this is good. You're trying to get people educated and staying in the fight, staying in the arena. You don't. One thing people need to remember is they don't have to have an elected position to be in the. I
Yeah.
mean, these activists that go and help us with bills, they rally the people to come to the Capitol or wherever. If we have a rally point, I mean, there everybody's so important. It's like one body has all these different parts to it, and so you don't even have to be an elected official to be effective. But I just want to remind everybody out there to stay strong. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's just a continual. It's a continual race. That's why. What was it? Paul said that I've run the race. I've did the best I could. I mean, he considered preaching the gospel a race, and this is. I mean, when you're running in a, what do they call it? When you're running for office, you're running a race, and it's a race, but it's a marathon. And to pace yourself, don't overdo it. You don't have to be at every event, but stay in the game, stay in the arena, and stay in the fight. And we'll keep persevering. We can't stop because we put our hand to the plow. We can't turn back. We have to keep going. So thanks, you guys. God bless you for all you're doing, and thanks, Mike, for coming on.
God
I
bless
love
you.
your perspectives. Good, all good. Everybody, I value all you guys. Even Daryl. Daryl, when you listen to this, I value your opinions too. Just not on this one.
Well, he just put a comment on, so he may be listening right now. So
Okay.
thanks, Daryl, if you can hear us.
Mike,
Well,
Mike, will you give us the information on your rally again?
Yep. So again, Dakota Patriot Rally right there on the screen, but it's November 3rd. The festivities start up about 5:30 p.m. here in Minot. It's at the State Fair Center. If you can make it, great. As Luke said, you can contact any of us about tickets up here as well. Great gun set, 20 guns, $20 a ticket, or $100 for 6 of them. So just going to be a great night. We had a great night last year. Rick Becker spoke last year. We had a wonderful night, about 400-ish people. We're hoping for over 500 this year. As Luke said, we intend this to be the biggest fundraiser in the state, and that's where we're headed with this thing. So come and join us if you can, and support us if you're able.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I'm going to let you two go. Luke, I need you to stay on just right quick, and we're going to end it, okay?
All
See
right,
you
thanks,
guys. Have a
see you,
blessed
Mike.
week.
See you, Jeff.
Take
Thanks
care.
again, gentlemen.
Godspeed.
So
Well, definitely, clearly, we won the debate. I mean,
that's
take a vote on it.
debatable. I'm the moderator, so I'm not going to say yes or no. So
See, those kind of conversations to me are so important because
yes,
we couldn't disagree more. I
right.
couldn't disagree more with Jeff is a dear friend of mine, like a dear friend. And that's the beauty of it. Like, we disagree, and that's fine. That's cool. But it's funny because rhinos label us conservatives of we're the stick in the mud. We just can't. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. Anyways, what were you gonna say?
No, I had a brain fart. So, next week I'm working on the guest. Thea Lee is confirmed to
Oh,
be
cool.
on.
Good girl.
We're gonna have her on to update us on her campaign, and then I have reached out to Clayton Peterson, retired NRA representative.
Retired NRA director for the 5-state area.
There you go.
So the lobbyist for all of North Dakota guns,
Yeah.
wrapped up in him. Okay, so he's no longer the sitting, but he is an amazing wealth of information. And also, for any of you that are NRA haters, I would challenge you because he's going to be here because he's running for a county commission seat. But
In Williams County.
yes, Williams County. But I would absolutely love for you to put down any comments you want to about the NRA and watch him defend them, because most people don't really know what the NRA is actually doing. They only hear bad, but they don't hear the good. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the NRA, you wouldn't have guns right now. That's just the facts. Did you mute me?
No, I didn't. I'm typing here because what we'll do is you guys can email us questions if you'd like. I'm gonna put it up here. Our email is called Here's the Deal Podcast 1 at gmail.com. And you can email us anytime, questions for guests, ideas for shows, whatever the case may be. I'll put it down there on the scrolly thing. Other than that, I guess the other thing is I was going to announce on Tioga's Sons of Liberty chapter is going to have their meeting on Sunday at 7:00. They're in Tioga at Poor Decisions. And that's
Poor Decisions.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. You invited me to go to that.
Yes. Yes, I did. So, at any rate,
all these poor, low IQ people that want this term limit stepped up.
Really?
Have that debate.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
No.
I don't understand why people would be upset with me from time to time. I mean, I think my sense of humor is great.
You make it hard to be your friend sometimes.
Do I really?
No.
Probably. So,
Probably. But with that, thanks for tuning in, guys, on Here's the Deal with Luke and Shilo. And next week we'll be on again at 8:00 Central Time, 7:00 man time, according to Luke. So
that's right, Mountain Time. I'm just telling you, come up and see the spirit of the West. Just come on up. You'll start, weird things will happen. You'll probably start getting hair on your chest.
yeah.
Even the women probably get hair on their chest. Hair on your face for sure. I'm telling you, you'll love it up here. Air is free and beautiful. You get a kiss from Montana with our beautiful wind. Oh, it's nice. It's beautiful out west. I'm telling you. And look, we're the conservative side. That makes us right. We're right. Yes. And I'm for everybody be on the same timeline. I am. It should be Mountain Time.
So again, our email address is here's the deal podcast1 at gmail.com. Email us your questions, thoughts, ideas for the show, guests. We'll take it all. So.
Oh, and one disclaimer too. My dentist watches our show, and he told me I was drinking a pop in front of him, and he didn't like that. This is sugar-free. So just so you know, this is sugar-free. And I do have toothpicks handy, even Carrie's. So, well.
All right. Thanks again, folks. Have a good evening.